Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Friday's live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. Let me go right to the top. We have Stu. Great to see you, Stu. Hope you're well. We have Archibus as well. King Muffin. But Ava jumped in between King Muffin and Joe Cake. Great to see all of you. We have Norflinger. Great to see you. We have Raven1983 Witch. Great to see you too. FSM is the dog. FSM certainly is the dog. Be more French. Hashtag be more French. Yes. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We have AMAXC. Great to see you. John O'Sullivan is back once again. Chatty Rat is here. Colin. Roshin. Hope you're all well. We have Wolfpet. Great to see you. Aki's Mad. Hope you're well, Aki's Mad. Who else have we got? We have Stefan, great to see you. Alistair Kerr, great to have you on. Hope you're well, Alistair. Up there in Scotland, we have Reagan Elite, great to see you, Reagan Elite. We also have Carolyn, great to have you on. Daily Blase, great to see you. Check out Daily Blase's channel. Really interesting video you uploaded. Was it today or yesterday? About the select committee. We have Jared Mack, great to see you, Jared. We have Bumbling Boris Buffoon. The Bumbling Boris Buffoon is almost out the door, it seems. But he's a bit like a rash. He tends to come back. Yoni, great to see you over there in Finland. Hope you're well. Kevin Marsh, Richard Turner, Paris in the Philippines. Great to have you on. Hope you're well over there in the Philippines. We have DSDW. Daniel is here. Val, I'm back. Great to see you. And so many more. Can't say hello to everyone. We have over 145 viewers, so just a massive hello to everyone. I see 91 leads is there, and so many more. Hope you're all very well. Hope you had a nice week. What a week it's been with Boris Johnson and and Brexit. Yes, we'll get to Brexit. I'm going to leave Boris Johnson. I'm not going to talk too much about Boris Johnson because this privileges committee is going to go on forever, I think. We had an interesting discussion about it yesterday, I think it was, for the Sunday roast. So do check out the Sunday roast on Sunday morning. We had Phil from A Different Bias, and we had Rob from Truth to Power. Rob from Truth to Power. So do check that out. It was a nice discussion we had about Brexit and all other issues, and Boris Johnson too. Before I get into the main things, I just want to start off with this story here that just dropped before I came on. It's Rishi Sunak bans media from Conservative Spring Conference. That's not a very good sign, is it? So Rishi Sunak has banned the media from the Conservative Spring Conference with his appearance and a business day held behind closed doors. Why? The Prime Minister was due to hold, and of course it'll be behind closed doors, but it will be leaked to the media, no doubt. Somebody there with a camera. Anyway, the Prime Minister was due to hold a Q&A and host drinks with party activists at the conference in Birmingham, the party's second biggest gathering in the political year. However, the press and public apart from the Tory members were barred from attending, with the party claiming it was an internal event closed to media. Business leaders were also invited to attend a business day on Friday at £500 a ticket. That's money down the drain. The party's on the way out. The Tories are going to lose the next election, no doubt. So why would somebody be paying them £500 a ticket? Anyway, with promises of a day of networking and highly interactive sessions between business leaders and government ministers. Is somebody maybe going to get a contract, some sort of PP type contract before Rishi Sunak is out the door? Maybe somebody can make a donation and get something just before the Tories crash and burn completely before the next election. It's not exactly a wonderful investment, I would say. Anyway, during the business day, the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt was interviewed by one of his Treasury ministers, Andrew Griffin, giving his outlook on the state of the economy after inflation soared above 10% again. The spring conference is often a major event in the political calendar, with Boris Johnson last year giving a speech in Blackpool that caused controversy when he appeared to compare the struggle of Ukrainians for freedom in the war with Russia with Britain's decision to leave the EU. Yes, we all remember that. Boris. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. They should ban journalists, Lee and Doris. Yes. Lee Anderson, £100,000 a year, or £100,000. We don't know how long he's actually going to work. So he's been given a contract to work. Is it with GB News? £100,000 to do what? How many shows is he going to host? And then Nadine Dorris working for Talk TV. Jacob Rees-Mogg working for GB News. How is that? How is all of this possible? You know, there was talk of maybe we should stop MPs from having second jobs, and as soon as there was talk of stopping them, all these MPs started going, okay, let's have a second job. Maybe we should tell them, don't resign. Maybe they'll actually do the opposite, because it's disgraceful. And then you even have situations where you have a Tory MP interviewing two Tory MPs. Thanks, Brad. In its brochure for the event billed the Spring Forum, the party described the event as the most important 2 days of the next general election campaign so far, and said it was a little bit different this year. There'll be no media. Some of the sessions for members include advice on raising money, how to seal the deal with donors, and offer them a PPE contract. And our plan, getting it done. We said you'll do it. Now get it done. I don't know what that's about. Conservative Party spokesperson said the conference was only a training event for members this year. Spring Forum 2023 is a training event specifically focused on 80-20 seats. It would be highly unusual for a political party to invite the press to an internal training event, he said. So the press are not invited because it's a quote-unquote internal training event. Maybe they don't want any embarrassments like last year. Anyway, moving on, we have Rishi Sunak here talking about the Windsor framework, which has been rejected by the DUP.
The Windsor framework is first and foremost for the people, families, communities and businesses of Northern Ireland. That's who we should have uppermost in our mind. And because of this Windsor framework, we can absolutely correct the issues that were there with the protocol. We can ensure Northern Ireland's place in our union, ensure that Northern Ireland's people and institutions have sovereignty, and means we can now look forward to a better...
Sorry, Northern Ireland has sovereignty? Northern Ireland is not a country. I thought it was... I thought he was supposed to be a unionist. Northern Ireland has sovereignty. Wow.
And brighter future for Northern Ireland. That's who it's about. It's about the people of Northern Ireland, and it represents a very good way forward for them.
Let's go live to Westminster and our political correspondent, Liz Bates. Liz, so is all of this Westminster framework a big political win for him, or because it's not got Stormont back up and running, is it
Westminster framework? No, it's the Windsor framework, but anyway.
For him, or because it's not got Stormont back up and running, is it a leap to say that?
Well, in many ways, the Windsor framework, it has been a huge success for Rishi Sunak, because in a really short period of time, he managed to solve some what seemed like intractable problems in Northern Ireland that were caused by Brexit. He managed to charm EU leaders. He got a number of concessions that previous prime ministers had failed to get.
What are you talking about? This is what I find so funny about this is. The EU, there's no. So when it came to the protocol, the EU were never complaining about the protocol. They didn't say, yeah, we have a problem with the protocol. There's something that we'd like to change. No, they were fully on board with the protocol. The people who were complaining about the protocol were the Brexiteers and the DUP. And now it seems that the EU have given some sort of concessions. What are these concessions? Because the protocol remains. Yeah, there are some changes, and it's renamed the Windsor framework, but it's still the protocol. There are these new lanes, but these were something that, in a sense, it's something agreed within the framework of the protocol. So the protocol is not gone. The DUP, the whole point of getting these so-called changes was to get the DUP on board, but the DUP are not on board. And he's pressing ahead with these changes anyway, which sort of begs the question: was it about the DUP, or was it just about window dressing for Brexiteers in England?
He was backed by the majority in the end of his party, and the Labour Party backed the Windsor framework as well. But what we saw last week when it came to part of the Windsor framework called the Stormont Break, which was voted on in the House of Commons, the DUP, in the end, the government thought that they had met all their tests and had provided them with the safeguards on sovereignty in Northern Ireland within that Stormont Break that they needed. But in the end, the DUP rejected that, and that does cause a serious problem for the Prime Minister, because although the Windsor framework was designed to do many things to sort out those political and economic problems that had been caused by the Northern Ireland Protocol, one of the big wins was supposed to be getting the DUP on side and getting Stormont sitting again, because, as you said, the DUP have been boycotting Stormont, and they say that is because of the problems that were caused with the Northern Ireland Protocol. So at this point, those issues with Stormont, the political problems with the DUP remain unresolved.
It's not so much about the problems with the protocol, it's that the DUP didn't want the protocol in the first place. And the DUP just wanted... then they changed their mind and said, we have problems with the protocol. And we wanted concessions made. He got a number of concessions. 0 is a number, said Yoni. Yes. What were the concessions? This is the thing, is they say, yeah, the EU have delivered a number of concessions. What are these concessions? And if there were concessions, surely EU member states, including Ireland, would have complained about these concessions. But the Irish government didn't say anything about the Windsor framework. They didn't say, no, we're not too happy about that, or why are you compromising on this, that, or the other. Some of the things that the UK had said was a compromise was, we've got the EU to... to agree for us to put in infrastructure in Northern Ireland. But that's what you were supposed to do in the first place. How was that the EU compromising? Once again, it is smoke and mirrors. It's an attempt just to keep Brexiteers happy. Not so much Brexiteers, the ERG. And, you have to sort of commend Rishi Sunak here, because he was able to pull this off. He was able to convince the ERG just to go away quietly. The DUP thought that they'd be able to pressure the ERG. But at the end of the day, it seems that the ERG are pretty much without any teeth at the moment. They're not the force they used to be. I think in part because people had sort of moved on from Brexit. In regards to the Windsor framework, the EU has formally adopted it. So it says here, Cleverly and Šefčovič agreed to work intensively and faithfully to implement Windsor framework after formally adopting it. James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, and Maroš Šefčovič, the European Commission Vice President, have, on behalf of the UK and the EU, formally adopted the Windsor framework, the revised version of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And you can see both of them smiling and shaking hands. The joint statement, Cleverly and Šefčovič said they met this morning in a constructive atmosphere, building on the excellent cooperation between them both in recent months. The reaction from the DUP from this was treason. Never. They said they would work together intensively and faithfully to implement the Windsor framework. They also proposed further post-Brexit cooperation on other issues, including energy, trade and security. In their statement, they set out some details. Energy, they underlined the importance of collaboration over the past year as Europe decouples from Russian fossil fuels and highlights the importance of dialogue on security and supply. They confirmed their commitment to progress work on the electricity trading arrangements envisaged in the TCA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. They also discussed the EU Green Deal industrial plan. On trade, they looked forward to the signing of a memorandum of understanding on financial services and on intellectual property soon. They agreed to finalise preparation for the working groups in the areas of technical barriers to trade as a matter of priority, and also discussed the UK's retained EU Law Bill and Bill of Rights Bill, which is something that the EU is not too happy about, and I have a feeling that it will be dropped at some stage. I'll get to why I think that in a moment. And finally, security. They noted the close collaboration in support of Ukraine and looked forward to dialogue provided for under the TCA in the areas of cybersecurity and cyberterrorism. They also discussed the implementation of data protection safeguards for passenger name records. Why I think that there's going to be the removal of the retained EU law bill is that I think Rishi Sunak, FSM is the dog, thanks so much for that super chat. Truss, the 5-minute Prime Minister, has nominated 4 new peers. Yes, and one of them, I think his name is Littlewood or something. He's the head of the IEA. You know that the IEA, the right-wing think tank backed by, it seems, the tobacco industry, who want to privatise the NHS. Fully on board with the privatisation of the NHS, climate change denial and stuff like that. The head of that, I forget what his name is, Littlewood or something. He's becoming a peer. I don't know the other 3, but I'm going to check them out after. But it's an absolute disgrace. And this is an argument for the closure of the House of Lords, is it not? The fact that Liz Truss, who was there for 3 months, was able to nominate 4 peers. She was able to send 4 cronies to the House of Lords. And those people, do nothings. They're able to claim £300 a day in expenses and have influence. Nothing dodgy about that, Max. No, nothing dodgy at all. Thanks, Yoni. Oh, FSM is the dog. Your super chat disappeared, but Mark Littlewood. I'm not sure why your super chat disappeared, but I got you anyway. Thanks for that. I see David McGuinness is on Indie Truck Davy. Check out Indie Truck Davy's channel. But I think when it comes just back to Rishi Sunak for a moment, I think what he wants is, I still have this belief that Rishi Sunak wanted Brexit, but he didn't want to be outside the single market, and that's one of the reasons why he was talking about how great the single market was in Northern Ireland. I think he wanted the UK to be out, but he wanted to be out of the political union. He wanted to be in the trade union. The trading bloc. That's what he wanted. But of course, you can't have one without the other. And perhaps that's why he didn't understand Brexit very well. He didn't understand the EU very well. And that's probably why he supported leaving the EU, because he didn't understand it. But now I think he's starting to understand that it's better to have a good relationship with the EU than a bad one. And perhaps he understands now the value of the single market, and he would like the UK to rejoin it. And you can see that he's starting to rebuild some of the bridges that Boris Johnson and Liz Truss burnt down with the EU. But he's not fully on board, it seems, with rejoining. Definitely not. And I think it's I think between now and the end of his time as Prime Minister, I think he's going to try and rebuild some bridges with the EU. But then he's gone, and it will be Keir Starmer who will be taking over. And I believe that a majority of people within the Labour Party want to rejoin the EU. So I think some of the language we're hearing from Labour at the moment about making Brexit work and all of this is an attempt just to keep the crazies on board, not to turn them off. Because I think the polling, the internal polling that the Labour Party are looking at is don't talk too much about Brexit. Garrett, thanks so much for that super chat. Random DUP quote: the GA is the sporting wing of the IRA. Sammy Wilson. The sporting wing. Oh my goodness. Wait till he finds out that the GEA existed long before the IRA or Sinn Féin. Oh my god, it was the GA's 1884, I think it was, and Sinn Féin appeared in 1919, was it? So I'm not sure how the GEA can be the sporting wing of the IRA, but oh my goodness. But then Sammy is, Sammy is Sammy. And the DUP, who was it? I think it was Frankie Boyle, the Scottish comedian, said, "The DUP are the political wing of the Old Testament." Anyway, moving on. I just want to show you this clip from an account I follow on Twitter, Farrak, who says, he shows here 2016, Andrea Leadsom, Brexiteer, says the UK outside the EU is a great place for foreign direct investment. And then what she said in 2023. Now, in 2013, she actually said, she wasn't a Brexiteer. She said that it would be a bad idea for Britain to leave the EU. But in 2016, she probably went, the wind is blowing in the Brexit way. I want to jump on board this bandwagon. And she very fully on board with the bandwagon. Now she had something else to say. But let's hear what she had to first say in 2016.
I will work tirelessly to reassure investors that the UK is open for business and a great place to employ people. This Windsor Agreement enables a huge opportunity in Northern Ireland, not just to be a precious part of our United Kingdom, but also to be the target of enormous amounts of foreign direct investment coming into Northern Ireland, because it will have the advantage of being an integral part of the United Kingdom, but having open access to EU markets as well. Yeah. No one needs to fear our decision to leave the EU. Yeah.
There you go. Max, Sinn Féin founded in 1905. Not my mea culpa. Sorry about that. I need to brush up on my history. They won a majority in the Dáil in 1919. I think that was it. So there you have it. Andrea Leadsom saying, there's nothing to fear about leaving the EU, and then saying, Northern Ireland is in a wonderful position. It's part of the single market and the internal market, but we don't want to extend that to the rest of the United Kingdom because that would be bad. So it's good for Northern Ireland, but bad for Britain. But then Britain is in a worse position because businesses are struggling to import and export in Britain, but in Northern Ireland it's not the case. This is why I would love to speak with somebody like Andrea Leadsom or even Rishi Sunak and ask him to explain how being outside the single market is good for British businesses, but bad for Northern Ireland ones. But being in the single market is good for Northern Ireland businesses and bad for British ones. Did I say that one right? I'd love to know how is it good for Northern Ireland but bad for Britain, when British businesses would like to actually reduce the paperwork. They would like to eliminate the paperwork and the cost. because, you know, if a business in Europe wants to purchase something from the UK, there's a lot of paperwork and there's a cost involved. There's customs duties, and it goes the other way too. Didn't used to be like that. And I think there's a fear I have is that we're going to get so far away from Brexit that people will forget how easy it used to be. Max, you have to have faith in the Brexit cult. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Macron on pensions. I don't put this legislation through Parliament, but not one, but two of my communication officers approved. Yes, this is a big problem for Macron because he thought he'd used this 49.3 article from the Constitution to avoid putting something through Parliament. He thought we'll just do it without the parliamentary vote because it would cover the arses of my members of Parliament, and didn't actually work out very well, and we're going to see that a little bit later on. First Brexit, then the destruction of Northern Ireland's relationship with the UK, and then the persecution of Boris. This just gets worse. I had the privilege of meeting Eamon de Valera as a child. Really? Not him as a child. you as a child. Well, you must. I'm not going to ask how old you are, but I think he died in 1970s or something. So, more a cult than a kingdom halls. The infamous Boris quote, "Fuck business," said it all. Yes, that was, you know, Brexit was about giving it to business, wasn't it? And, you know, you're going to hear a lot about how, well, we can grease the wheels and you can make Brexit a bit less frictionless, but it's not going to work until the UK rejoins the EU and the single market. I think it already happened, Max. We've already got used to food shortages in supermarkets and queues at customs and lack of workers and resources, basically everything. And that's the fear. Well, that's, as you said, people are getting used to the consequences of Brexit. Like in World War II, the rationing at the beginning was probably a bit of a pain in the arse, but then people got used to it. But you would expect things to get better. Pumps, great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that super chat. I don't know about you, the rest of you guys, but I'm thinking of leaving the EU. Might not have been a good idea after all. Yeah, it's not such a good idea. Thanks, Pumps. We're about halfway through the stream, a little bit, just a bit under halfway. Arthur Griffith Sinn Féin wanted a dual monarchy. Freddie B, thanks so much, Freddie B. Really? A dual monarchy? Wanted a High King of Ireland back? I didn't know about that. Learning something new every day. Anyway, I want to take a short break and we'll return to the serious stuff in just a jiffy.
People, they all come to me and they say, like my favorite phrase, off, and they come up and they say, can I take a photo of you telling me off? And you go, no, that's the easiest thing in the world for me to say, because I really do want off. So I can tell you, I'm off. And they go, oh, thank you. Stupid, they don't get it, duh. You've just asked me to tell you off. I'm telling you off, but you don't realize I'm really telling you off. People are...
I love Brian Cox. Fuck off. Okay, the economy. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is from earlier today. Bank stocks slide as contagion fears flare up. Deutsche Bank hammered. Bank stocks are sliding again today, with Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, hardest hit as fears of contagion flared up following the collapse of 3 US banks and UBS rescue of Credit Suisse in recent weeks. The cost of insuring bank against bank defaults surged, while the pound and the euro fell against the dollar and bond yields sank. There they move in inverse relation to prices. So as they go up, it means things are not going very well. As investors sought refuge in safe haven investments such as the dollar and government bonds. The Euro Stoxx Banks Index is down 4.6%. In the UK's banks index lost 3.7%. Barclays is the biggest faller on the FTSE 100 in London, down 5.4%, and HSBC cut its price target on the stock. So I really hope that we're not moving into another situation where a rerun of 2008, 2007, 2008, when there was a run on the bank, well, not a run on the banks, but many of the banks collapsed and they had to be bought out. They had to be propped up by the state. Money being pumped into financial institutions just because they were too big to fail. This is worrying. So, SMAC, thank you so much for that super chat. A group of Citibank analysts said that the fall of Deutsche Bank shares today was irrational. And this is the problem, is that the market is irrational. We view this as an irrational market, the note said. The risk is that there is a knock-on impact from various media headlines and depositors psychologically, regardless of whether the reasoning behind this was correct or not. And it doesn't matter, and this is a problem with the markets, is if they feel... It comes down to feelings, a lot of this. If they feel that there's a recession coming, then they will react in this way. Or if they feel that one of the banks isn't secure, then they'll react in this way. The statement hits at the nature of the panic in the banking industry, a lot of it bred on feelings of fear over substantive reasoning. This is why officials, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, spent much of today trying to maintain trust in the banking system. Deutsche Bank has fundamentally modernized and reorganized its business model. Scholz said it is a very profitable bank and there's no reason for concern. I think a way to UBI, I think a way to maybe inject confidence is for example, the state to say, look, we will protect any deposits within these banks. So. But I don't know if this is the problem. But it shows how, the masters of the universe are extremely fickle, and we are, our lives are dependent on the decisions that they make. Did someone say UBI, Universal Basic Income? I give it another boost. I keep saying that I need to get somebody on about UBI, so I promise I will look into that once again. It'd be great to have someone on the Sunday roast about the UBI to explain it to people, because during difficult times, we should, and as I said on other occasions, during the pandemic, a UBI, that was the perfect time to introduce a UBI, a bit like the furlough scheme, where you pay people a minimum amount of money to survive. Could be £1,000 a month, it could be €1,000, $1,000, but it will be for the rest of your life, and that's what's the wonderful thing about a UBI. And it's something that's supported both on the left and on the right. Socialist banking. Corey Tunt. I love that name. Oh my goodness. There's another story related to this. As we saw here, the banks slide amid fears of global crisis. Yields on US bonds have fallen sharply as investors sought refuge in US debt. No, there was another story I wanted to cover related to this, I think. Deutsche Bank leads sell-off in European bank shares. Yeah, that was basically it. It's something we're going to have to keep an eye on, but hopefully it will sort of correct itself. Things are not as bad as they were in 2007, 2008. We have, I'll just come to this in a moment. There are much better safeguards in place, and there isn't a growing credit bubble like there was in 2007, where you had the subprime mortgage crisis. So let's move on to France. It says here, according to Sky News, the King of England, of course, Why is he called the King of England and not the King of the United Kingdom? The King of Britain. He's called the King of England. Anyway, maybe somebody can tell me in the chat why Charles is the King of England and not the King of Britain or King of Great Britain or King of United Kingdom. Expect CBDC soon. Thank you so much, David. I'm not sure what you mean by CBDC. Maybe someone in the chat can explain. King Crimson. Take your expensive watch off, Macron. Yes, he was. I don't know if it was a 20,000 euro or 8,000 euro watch he was wearing. There's a cost of living crisis, and you have the president, wearing a very expensive watch. Doesn't go down very well. Is it? Although Rishi Sunak would probably look at that and go, cheapskate. Where did you get that? Lidl. 20 grand for a watch. Pfft. I wouldn't give my children a 20 grand watch. In one sense, Tories would love a banking crisis. It would be yet another rug which they could sweep the shit of Brexit under. Yes, very, very good point, Freckle Punny. Only Rangers fans like King Charles in Scotland. The central bank digital currency. So there will be a central bank digital currency soon. That'd be interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for raising that, David, and thanks for the explanation, Yoni. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. You can imagine Sinn Féin announcing a UBI. Max, Sammy Wilson, as he clutches his orange sash, would be like, UBI is a financial wing of the IRA. Everything. The Sinn Féin should actually secretly join the Orange Order and then come out as we're members. We have a green, white, and orange sash. And we're actually orange men all along, and then this would just, I think, he would explode. Sammy Wilson would. Somebody was saying today on Twitter that Sammy Wilson, I think it was Sammy Wilson or it was Alistair, Jim Alistair. Jim Alistair wasn't available for an interview because he was getting his magma transplant done. Oh my goodness, magma transplant. Or lava transplant. I'm not sure which it was. Richard Turner, thank you so much for that super chat. If bankers are struggling, why don't they just work more hours or get a better paying job? It's not funny when the boot is on the other foot. Well said, Richard. Yes, and that should also be applied to people like Boris Johnson or 30p Lee Anderson. Although we should stop calling him 30p, we should call him £100,000 Lee Anderson, because that's what he's getting paid at the moment. Anyway, it says here the Kings. We have another one from Ruth. Thank you so much, Ruth. Not my king, with the love from Scotland. Well said. Not my king. He's not the King of Scotland. Bring back Robert the Bruce. Thanks so much, Ruth. We have Brad as well. Thank you so much, Brad. When the French protesters are done with this issue, they need to come to the UK and help overthrow the government too. Yes, in a peaceful means, in a peaceful way, of course. But I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter from British people looking at what's happening in France and saying, why can't we do something like this here? Why aren't we protesting? Why aren't we reacting in the same way? We just sit on our hands or we grumble. And then you also have the right wing who are complaining, saying, the French are lazy and of course they're going to do this because, or was it one of them said, I saw somebody on the right was saying, the French are, they're too lazy to work, but they're not too lazy to protest. They're protesting for something they believe in. What are you doing? You're on Twitter complaining about people protesting about something they believe in. I don't get it. Alistair, thank you so much for sending out those invitations. Very kind of you to Alec, Richard, Von Nackenizer, Freddie B, and Sean Hanna. Great to have you on. See you on the post-stream chat later. We have David McGuinness again. Central bank digital currencies, look them up. Definitely will look that up after. David, thanks for that. This is something, yes, I think it's something that could really change how we operate. And it would provide a certain level of security, I imagine. And transparency, I think this is the thing about digital currency, would provide a level of transparency that doesn't really exist at the moment. Thanks for that. So it says here, the King's state visit to France has been postponed after widespread unrest erupted into violence over President Emmanuel Macron's retirement age reforms.
J'ai pris l'initiative ce matin de l'appeler et de lui dire.
I called the King myself this morning to tell him what the situation here is, and based on common sense and friendship, we decided what the best course of action would be. What would have really not been feasible for neither the British nor for us would have been to have tried to carry on as if nothing was happening, despite what the actual situation is. So we will reorganise this for when calm returns, and we suggested that come the beginning of summer, and with our diaries allowing, we will announce details of a new state visit, which will allow us to properly welcome the new King and the Queen Consort, and to do this in conditions that will allow us to show off France in both Paris and Bordeaux.
A state visit. It's not just him coming over to say hello but this is a state visit. This is something that's planned way in advance. Maybe not a year in advance, obviously, but or maybe it was planned for the Queen to come, but this is a state visit. It's something pretty important, and to have it cancelled like this is extremely embarrassing for Macron. But it would have attracted a lot of attention, and it could have been a security risk. I think there was actually a security risk here. I have a feeling what Macron is going to do is he's probably going to back down eventually over this. So just a bit more on that. King Charles' visit to France postponed amid protests. Emmanuel Macron has defended the last-minute postponement of King Charles's state visit to France next week, saying it would not have been a serious or good sense for it to go ahead, as it clashed with another national day of mass strikes and social unrest. The King had been scheduled to arrive in France on Sunday on his first state visit as monarch. I think the last time King Charles visited France was the result was not very positive either. The King was scheduled, after asked if the cancellations was humiliating from France. The French president replied, "What would have been detestable for the British people as well as for ourselves would have been to maintain it with possible incidents in the process." Yes, you don't want any sort of problems when there's a state visit taking place. In a statement earlier in the day, the Élysée Palace said the decision to postpone the visit had been taken by the French and British governments following the telephone conversation between Macron and Charles on Friday morning after mass protests against the French government the previous day. In a statement, Buckingham Palace said the King and the Queen Consort's state visit to France has been postponed. Their Majesties greatly look forward to the opportunity to visit France as soon as dates can be found. People angry at the French president were continuing protests on Friday after mass demonstrations on Thursday had been planned. A further day of action next Tuesday during the royal visit. And you can see some of the pictures here of the damage being done, and it's the people are pretty angry. Police have been mobilized to deal with protest, and in some cases the police have joined the protests. the firefighters have joined the protest. So there seems to be a shift against the government here, and this is why I have a feeling that Macron will back down. Although it's going to be very difficult for him. I don't know if how long it's going to take for him to back down over this. Bordeaux City Hall set on fire amid nationwide protests against French pension changes. You can see here, and damage. It says just some comments. Juliet 51, a teacher, said they want to raise it to 64 today. It will be 66, 67, 68 tomorrow. They tell us life expectancy is longer, but we are not. But are we to work until we collapse and are carried off to the crematorium? Many protesters accused the president of showing contempt and arrogance for those opposed to the changes, which were a keystone of his re-election campaign last year. On Thursday evening, the Interior Minister, Gerard Darmanin, said the majority of the 103 people arrested in Paris on Thursday were mostly young and were known members of the ultra-left groups. The authorities said more than 120 police officers and Gemardin who had been injured. There were no figures available for the number of protesters hurt. Ruth, thanks so much for that super chat. Pebbles are having a coronation celebration. Anyone want to join me in spoiling their day? Thanks for that. Pebbles. It's going to go on until the government give in. I think the government will eventually give in.
Good afternoon. King Charles's state visit to France this weekend.
We have a super chat from Gareth once again. Thanks so much, Gareth. Oh my goodness, will I be able to read this? Old sausage fingers is a king. I shouldn't laugh, but Gareth, you do it every time. I'll try again. Old sausage fingers is a king. Will blow me down with a 12 million pound pizza. Oh my god. And it gets worse as we go along. Damn you, Gareth. Okay. Old sausage fingers is a king. Will blow me down with a 12 million pound Pizza Express settlement. I thought he spent his time being one of Camilla's tampons. Oh my goodness. Breathe. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Damn you, Gareth. Continuing.
And has been postponed. It comes after anti-government protests in the country over plans to raise the retirement age erupted in violence again last night. The King had been due to arrive in France this Sunday. It would have been the first state visit of his reign, but it's now been cancelled at the request of the French government. Well, confirming the news, a UK government spokesperson said the King and Queen Consort's state visit to France has been postponed. This decision was taken with the consent of all parties after the President of France asked the British government to postpone.
Sorry, I keep looking at the chat and I shouldn't be looking at the chat because Richmond fingers. Like a tampon sleeve. Did he need to pull some strings? Oh my goodness.
the visit. A very similar statement as well from Buckingham Palace, which reads, the King and the Queen Consort's state visit to France has been postponed. Their Majesties greatly look forward to the opportunity to visit France as soon as dates can be found.
Oh my God, I have to move on from this. Stiff little fingers or lady fingers. Oh my goodness. Monarchy is the pinnacle of the UK class system. It is. It's a really weird tradition. Allegedly, Charles, when he was prince, had people iron his shoelaces. I don't know if this is true. Now there was a sort of urban legend. I think it was a sort of exaggerated story where he had somebody. But, oh my God, can I even say these things? He used to have somebody put toothpaste on a toothbrush. It actually turned out that he had broken his arm in a riding accident, so somebody was actually putting toothpaste on his toothbrush. It wasn't because he was Prince Charles, but ironing his shoelaces. Really? The French are not slow to tell their politicians where to go. No, they are not. And when we say, and this isn't a once-off. What's happening in France? Whenever the farmers feel that they're being, done out of a deal by the government, they arrive at government buildings or in front of the palace, and they dump manure or raw fish or rotten fish or something. They don't take it lying down, and unfortunately, I think British and the Irish to a certain extent as well, they will just take it lying down. That they won't react in the same way as the French do. Thanks, Wolf Pat. That's my rib hurting. Breathe, Max, breathe. I'm trying. Moving on. No, there's one's. No, there was another video I wanted to show. Where is it? Oh yes, I'll get to that in a moment.
President Jacques.
So I just want to show you this report from this piece from Lewis Goodall on LBC about the difference between what's happening in France and what's happening in the UK. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Bring a whole new meaning to the blood right. Yeah, yes it does. Well said, Gareth. The blood right. Oh, tampons and no, my goodness, I just got it now. You're terrible, Gareth. But never change.
Whether it's President Jacques Chirac or whether it's Nicolas Sarkozy, many of the others don't even bother because they know that this is the third rail of French politics. You just don't touch it. It's kind of their equivalent in a way, as opposed to the NHS in this country.
No, it's not. Well, not really, because the Conservatives had no problem with selling off the NHS. They're even promoting the sale of the NHS at the moment. So it's not really the same.
Country. Politicians touch it and they die, politically speaking. And indeed, so it is proving again with Emmanuel Macron. He has managed to generate, and we should just talk a little bit about the background to this. This is, of course, his proposals are what in this country many people would consider to be relatively modest. He's talking about increasing the age at which you would guaranteed to receive a full state pension in France, which is a generous pension, from 62 to 64. Obviously, this has been outstripped by other European countries in recent years, not least our own, where we're now heading at, 66, 67. Nonetheless, this has generated enormous backlash. One trade union estimated there were 3.5 million people on the streets of France yesterday. Sometimes you need to take those figures with a pinch of salt, but the French Ministry of Interior itself said, who has no reason to exaggerate these figures, said that over 1 million people had entered central Paris yesterday. And it certainly felt like that, because as I say, I was there. And I've covered a lot of protests in my time as a journalist, covered riots, and I don't think I've ever seen a protest quite like that. The sheer size, the sheer scale of it every direction, just a sea, cascade of people. And it didn't seem to stop from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon right through until about 10 o'clock at night. Old, young, alike, from different trade unions, from different professions. Firefighters were there, doctors were there, nurses were there, school teachers were there, school dinner ladies were there. Everybody from almost every profession you could imagine. Dustbin men, and women. One of the reasons why, of course, at the moment, lots of Paris is frankly under a, let's say, something of an odor right now.
Okay. But I think what's the point being raised here is that it's the retirement age is going from 62 to 64. But as you heard from, as we saw before, many of the people who are protesting feel that it's a slippery slope, that the government this will open the doors for the government to increase the retirement age to 67, 68, all the way up to, as the woman who was a teacher said, we work until we drop dead. And the way of working and the work-life balance in France is very different to the US or different to Britain. The French are very much like some other European countries where they say, work. I work to live, not live to work, and they really reject this idea of we're only here. Our existence is just to fill a slot. We like to have a life outside work, and we liked the idea of retiring and relaxing in our older age. Traveling around the country in a caravan or something like that. This is something that they want to. This is something they hold dear, and they don't want to give that up. The concrete grower is included. I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, so I want to move on to another topic. Boris Johnson. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Boris Johnson, but I want to show you this vox pop that was from Joe Politics. They interviewed some people within Boris Johnson's constituency, and it was a bit mixed.
I think people who voted for him before now see him how he is, trying to fight for his career, and I think a lot of people have changed their minds because of him. They don't like being lied to.
He's probably the best of what we have, unfortunately, and I know that sounds crazy, could sound like that, but he is more liberal, but at the same time he would probably be able to, I think he'll be able to fight this, and I think he's got it in him.
But he did come down to Conservative Club occasionally. People reported him citing of Boris Johnson, but then he supported citing the Loch Ness Monster as well. But yeah.
Boris Johnson was as common at the Conservative Club as the Loch Ness Monster was. Gary, thanks so much for that super chat. Just a smaller side. Thanks for the laughs. Thank you so much for that, Gareth. No, thank you. Thank you so much for the laughs. I think everyone on the chat appreciates the laughs too. Thank you so much. Boris Johnson has... I think what the woman said at the beginning, that he was more liberal, I think what she means is that he was more out there, that he's not your typical Tory. He's not the Tory of the 1980s, 1990s. So, stiff upper lip, formal, conservative with both a big C and a small c. Boris Johnson was more of a clown with a small c or a big C, whichever you prefer. And I think that's why a lot of people warmed to him, because he was a bit of a clown. But we saw the result of putting a clown in charge. You end up with a circus. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. Whatever he's smoking sounds amazing. Yes.
Didn't appear very often.
Do you live in Uxbridge?
Yes, I do, just up there.
How do you feel about having Boris as your local MP?
I'm not happy at all.
He's jolly, isn't he? He's sort of... So now when he gets out of a cab, he roughs his hair up and then he all goes all wobbly and...
I love that. He goes all wobbly. It's a perfect description of Boris Johnson. Richard Turner, thanks so much, Richard. Question for the red hat woman. Won't vote Labour as she doesn't know won't vote Labour as it doesn't know what a woman is, but knows what Johnson thinks a woman is, and is fine with that. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Where she says, "Oh, I can't vote for Labour because they don't know what a woman is." Okay, but she knows what Boris Johnson thinks a woman is. Thanks, Richard, and thanks, Brad. Wolfpet, once again, thanks so much, Wolfpet. Max Hastings said you can't get rid of Boris Johnson until he's been buried at a crossroads with a stake through his heart. That's probably, that's the only way to get rid of Boris Johnson. I don't know if the Privileges Committee know about this. Maybe somebody needs to inform them. Thanks for that, Wolfpet.
Part of his act, well, it's much like all politicians, I'm afraid. They all lie, don't they? But then that's part of their job, isn't it?
See, this is a big problem, is that people like Boris Johnson have curated the ability to lie to such a perfection that he's brought down everyone to his level. Or he's convinced, not that he has, but he's convinced the public that everyone is like him, that everyone is a liar. And I've said before, there's a difference between promising something and not being able to deliver it, and promising something that you know you cannot deliver. That's the difference. Like the Labour Party will probably promise to cut taxes or increase spending or all sorts of things. And then when they get into power, they may say, actually, we can't do that. That's different than saying, okay, let's deliberately lie about things. And I think that's important. It's important to make that difference. It's if you call a plumber and they say, yeah, I'll be around between, when you call a plumber, it's normally between 9 a.m. and the heat death of the universe. But if they say I'll be around tomorrow, if they don't turn up because they had some sort of problem, that's one thing. But if they say I'll be around tomorrow, deliberately know that they won't, then that's a big problem. Thanks so much, Gareth. Once again, Boris Johnson, wibble wobble. I think that was officially his opening speech to Parliament. Wibble wobble.
I mean, if they told the truth, it'd be a terrible place, wouldn't it? Yeah, but I never did like him, but then I'm a socialist, so that's probably not him. Yeah. There are some about.
What do you think about Boris Johnson?
Oh, he's a fantastic leader. I do.
How is he a fantastic leader? What has he led on?
I appreciate him and like him since he was. Where did he start? Before he became MP, he was forgotten position.
So you admire Boris Johnson so much you don't remember that he was Mayor of London?
But I follow him. He's a lovely guy. He's a good guy.
But I think he's...
Simple guy? I've never heard Boris Johnson ever called simple. Simple-minded, but not simple. He's not a simple guy. He went to friggin' Eton.
Position, but I follow him. He's a lovely guy. He's a good guy.
But I think he's the worst Prime Minister that I can recall.
From Australian as well, that's quite damning, considering you're the Australian Prime Minister recently.
Yes, don't talk.
Max, are you on the wacky backy? No. I haven't been on the wacky backy. I'm sorry to say. I'm just normally like this on a live stream. I'm not actually. If you've just joined, I'm recovering from some of the super chats that came in from Gareth, for example, that had me going.
Talk to me about the Australian Prime Ministers. I thought I was escaping politics when I came over here, because I landed in this disaster, with COVID and Boris. Yes.
So if Boris Johnson is suspended from the House of Commons for 10 days or more, there will be a by-election here in Uxbridge, so he'll have to fight to remain as an MP for the area. How do you think that would go?
Well, I need to see what's on offer, really, because at the moment I don't know. I wouldn't vote Labour.
Why wouldn't you vote Labour?
Because right down there, the leader doesn't know what a woman is.
So let's ignore for a moment this idea that Keir Starmer doesn't know what a woman is. So you're happy with a cost of living crisis. You're happy with NHS waiting lists going through the roof. You're happy with energy bills. You're happy with all of these things because the alternative is Keir Starmer. Really? You don't have a problem with any of these things because, the opposite would be Keir Starmer. Like, Keir Starmer could be willing to... If Keir Starmer came out and said, I'm going to resolve all of these problems for her, no, that's not enough because you don't know what a woman is.
Okay. He can't define a woman, so that's enough for me to not vote for them.
That's a strong enough. So that's
absolutely
brilliant.
You're not going to vote, but you won't be voting for Keir Starmer. What is wrong with these people? They're just regurgitating the newspapers they read. Yeah, she's probably one of the only subscribers to the Express in physical copy, if there is still a physical copy of the Express. The botched Botox job is a funny thing to see. Yeah, I didn't want to comment on her appearance because I don't agree with commenting on people's appearance, but unless it's Boris Johnson. But how can you're not voting for Keir Starmer? If you say, I don't like Keir Starmer, okay, but you're not voting for here. And this is the big problem I have with these cults of personality and these people in general. You vote for policies. You should be voting for policy. You should be saying, okay, what are Labour's policies and what are the Conservatives' policies? Well, the Conservatives' policies is we need to keep racists and bigots happy by trying to stop boats. Okay. We've trashed the economy, but we're going to pretend that we didn't. And on the Labour side, well, they want to introduce, they want to have an energy company. Hopefully that would bring down prices. That's a good idea. They seem to want to invest in renewable energy. They want to invest in retrofitting homes. That could bring down bills. They generally are more supportive of people on benefits, generally. These are some of the things that could, they care more about the environment. They're more likely to support families. So this is on one side, and on the other side you have boats, and people who claim to know what a woman is. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Breathe Max, count to 5. Wow, this is so bad. It is. Sweet darling honey love, thank you so much for that super chat. Very kind of you. Boris is hoping for the boys will be boys defense. Maybe, yes. I think not. Maybe you've hit the nail on the head there. It's all, and you've seen it with Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries, that he did nothing wrong, and then it was just a bit of cake. And why are you throwing out this wonderful leader, the guy who got the vaccine done, got Brexit done and all of these things. And, it's just a bit of fun. Leave him alone. He's doing his best. Boys will be boys, as you said. That's the argument. That's the defense.
Yeah, that's very that's very important. Mm-hmm. To answer a simple question, but at the moment he can't answer that, so I don't think I would vote for Labour.
Is she Russian? just a curiosity I have. Maybe she's a Russian donor. I don't know.
What is it people or what do you think people in Uxbridge like about Boris Johnson?
I don't know.
I think people who voted for him before now see him how he is, trying to fight for his career, and I think a lot of people have changed their minds because of him. They don't like being lied to.
Boris Johnson did not come down in the last shower. Boris Johnson was Mayor of London. He wrote articles for The Telegraph, and he lied while he was Mayor of London, and he lied when he was writing articles for The Telegraph. He was actually fired because of his lying. Did people not understand that when it came to the time to vote for him? They said, is this guy... Okay, I understand that, people will say, well, politicians are liars. But Boris Johnson is a gold medalist. platinum medalist when it comes to lying. Like, Boris Johnson lies so much that he probably doesn't even believe the things he says himself. You know, if Boris Johnson told me my name is Boris Johnson, I'd actually... No, it's like, his name isn't even Boris Johnson. That's not even his real frigging name. Oh my God. Gareth, once again, thanks so much, Gareth. Nadine Doris disguises inside accents. Who knows? Disguises include accents, sorry. Who knows? Maybe that was Nadine Doris back there. The woman in with the red hat. Leave him alone. He's doing his best. He's a nice guy. He's a good man. I love him so.
And they think, especially the poor people, have been let down with their loved ones saying, don't go out, don't do this, don't do that. And because he's seen to be enjoying himself, even though he says it's political, and he was just in a meeting, but it was more a meeting because I don't think you need the wine and the cheers and people laughing. That's not really a political meeting.
It's not like any meeting.
No, normally meetings don't include wine and laughing and no documentation, no pens or paper or no laptops or computers. No. Generally, yeah, the business meetings generally have things like pen and paper and, material that we normally associate with meetings, and there was none of that. And generally at meetings, you don't have people puking up walls or breaking children's toys.
Thing I've been to, really.
No, it's not going to be. I don't know how it is. As I say, you have to wait to when the end of this inquiry comes to see what's happening to it.
He's probably the best of what we have. Unfortunate.
No, he's not the best. He's the worst. Maybe Liz Truss is worse than Boris Johnson because she's so incompetent. It's actually a difficult question. He's definitely not the best, okay? There are much better people in politics, much better people in the House of Commons and you don't even have to go, to other parties to find better people than Boris Johnson. But this idea that he's the best, he's probably the best we've had, unfortunately.
And I know that sounds crazy, could sound like that, but he is more liberal, but at the same time he would probably be able to. I think he'll be able to fight this, and I think he's got it in him, because anyone else that comes to take over, I don't think will be will be successful. I just don't think so.
Okay. Enough of that rubbish. We're almost at the end of the stream. Want to move on to this next story here. Ring-fence 10% of UK health spending to prevent for preventative measures, report urges. The government should set aside 10% of health spending for preventative and public measures such as cycle lanes and anti-obesity strategies, a think tank has said, warning that the political short-termism over health is making the UK increasingly ill and unequal. No fan of Tony Blair, but the report by the Tony Blair Institute, which is a pretty good think tank. Ruth, thank you so much for that super chat. Argues that that a centralised NHS model almost entirely focused on treating sickness rather than on the wider objectives is not only harming people's health but hampering the economy, with more than 2.5 million people out of the labour market following long-term ailments. And this is important. It's important to focus on preventative measures. Prevention is better than cure. And it saves the economy, it saves the NHS huge amounts of money in the long term. But a big problem, especially with the Conservatives, is that they don't want to spend money now that will help a future government, because the future government could be the Labour Party. This was a very interesting point raised by Phil from A Different Bias, and you'll see it on Sunday. That hopefully it makes it into the clip. But he mentioned how, we're asking, why aren't the government spending money on this or that or on health education? Because they see it as a waste, and they don't want somebody else benefiting from the investment put in today. And I think this is a big problem with, it's not just with the Conservatives, but with many governments. They see it as, well, if I invest the money today, we're not going to see the results today. We're going to see the results in the future. It could be far future. And we're not going to benefit from that. But we can't have a society like this. We need to have a consensus within political parties on issues like health and education in particular. So it shouldn't be, one government says, well, let's invest, and the other no. You have to have both parties or all parties believing in general things. There must be some consensus within all parties on, I believe, health and education. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And that's why you're having, whatever Labour do in the future, they'll put in the investment. They're probably not going to see the benefits of that. Politically, it'll be the next party. And then if the Conservatives are in again after that, they're going to, of course, cut public spending and make it, undo whatever investment was put in. The report emphasizes on the human cost as well, noting that the effect of diseases caused by or exacerbated by lifestyle means the UK life expectancy is stagnating, while men living in the London borough of Kensington and Chelsea are now expected to live 27 years longer than their peers in Blackpool and Lancashire. My God, 27-year difference. This is insane. 27 years. So your postcode will decide how long you live. And of course, if you're in a richer society, in a richer part of the country, it's not just that you have access to better housing, but you have access to better services. Maybe you have a GP in your local area, while if you're in a poorer part, there's probably one GP for, tens of thousands of people. Maybe there are fitness there are cycle lanes, so you don't actually have to rely on your car or public transport. So, if you can cycle to work every day, that's great for your health. Mods are spamming the chat. No, they're not mods. They're subscribers, I think. We have a bot as well, which is writing stuff. Policies of these kinds. The report also stressed the need for interventionist policies such as restrictions on advertising junk food, subsidies for healthier options, and investment in sports and community services places. And you know who's arguing against this? The right-wing think tanks. The IEAs of this world, who will say, no, don't tell people to cut back on junk food. That's interfering with their liberty. When in reality, these think tanks like the IEA are backed by shadowy money, and if you do enough investigation, you find out that some of the shadowy money comes from, for example, the tobacco industry, or companies that want people to eat more junk food. These are the ones in pumping money into these think tanks, and then these think tanks go on TV like the BBC and are presented as, experts. And they will say, no, we don't need to eat more healthy food. McDonald's is perfectly healthy or something like that. Or smoking is good for you. This sort of crap you're going to hear. Maybe not as explicitly stupid as that. But you will see these trying to tell people to eat healthy is infringing on their liberties, or it's the nanny state getting involved. And it's about convincing people, convincing more and more people that they don't need government intervention, because these organizations don't want the government intervening because it's cutting into their profit line, their bottom line. Gareth, once again, thanks so much. Max, you've gone full Suella laugh tonight. In front of a refugee centre. We saw the picture of the laugh, but we never heard the laugh. That's the difference. I didn't hear the laugh anyway. Maybe somebody did. I wonder, was it creepy? What was she laughing about? So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to cover one final story in Ireland. I did a video on...
What's the
just cover this quickly. I want... what's happening in Ireland at the moment, there's some Irish people I know on the stream tonight. What's happening in Ireland at the moment is there's an eviction ban coming to an end. So there's a ban on no-fault evictions. These are evictions where somebody has been removed from the property, a rented accommodation. I did a video on it earlier today, but it's about, so the government has decided, they had decided to have a ban on these no-fault evictions. So no-fault eviction, once again, is where you're kicked out of your rented accommodation even if you have paid the rent and you don't have any convictions for antisocial behavior, which is really worrying because a lot of people are going to be kicked out of their homes on the 1st of April if this goes ahead. Sinn Féin and some other parties, I think, are trying to get another measure in the Irish Dáil, the Parliament, to try and stop this. But it's likely to go ahead, and many people are going to be out on the street because they can't get accommodation. I covered in the video, for example, the city of Limerick, which is just under 100,000 people. There are about 7 or 8 apartments available at the moment to rent, and a lot of them are above €2,000 a month. So if you're earning minimum wage, you're probably on less than €2,000 a month. How are you going to afford accommodation like that? And this is maybe a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not a house. It's not like, okay, we'll house share. No, in many cases it's just an apartment, and it's €2,000 a month, or more than 2,000. One, it was €2,600 a month, which is completely beyond the realms of possibility for many people. But I just want to show you this report from Irish media.
Vibe, to use the overused sort of phrase of du jour at the moment in government around this, because I asked Eamon Ryan yesterday in the post-cabinet thing, and I asked him how comfortable he would be with the fact that his legacy as the leader of the Green Party in government will be that he's lost perhaps a couple of TDs, but most importantly is going to be responsible for a change in legislation that led potentially to hundreds, if not thousands of people being made homeless. And he said, we're going to sort it, and we're just going to do whatever we can to prevent people sleeping in Garda stations and in parks.
I think they know that they...
So one of the things, I'll just give you a bit more context here. So one of the results of this is that many people will end up sleeping in a Garda station, which is a police station, because they'll have nowhere to go. Because emergency accommodation is full or close to capacity in many parts of the country. Rented accommodation is pretty much impossible to find. Some people would probably move back in with their parents, but for those who can't, if they have, and it's not just a case of, okay, I'll look for accommodation on the other side of the country where it's cheaper. In many cases, these are families we're talking about who have children, and the children have to go to school, and they can't be uprooted and moved, hundreds of miles across the country and set up in a new location. Not everyone we're talking about are single people.
They have lost in the public's eyes the argument that they know that from a publicity perspective this is irredeemable, that even if all of this comes good, and even if they are vindicated in time, that what they are doing is the least worst option, it's going to take so long for the truth of that to come out that it's not going to help them this side of a general election, no matter when that comes anyway. So I think that they know that that's lost, which in truth is why there is a little bit more focus on, and I'm guilty of focusing on this, but you're right to remind us of the human cost of all of this as well, about votes in the Dáil and what's going to happen. So the vote that's been happening this week, this non-binding vote on the Sinn Féin motion, is all window dressing to a point, because it's symbolism, but it's only symbolism and nothing more. But there's another vote coming next week. Labour are tabling a motion of no confidence, and if that passes, the government is literally sacked. A motion of no confidence to be passed in the Dáil triggers a general election, and suddenly this podcast looks very different because we're all doing it out on the roads, following political parties around the place. So what's happening now in Leinster House is that you're seeing the government, even though it's only symbolism, trying to make policy concessions to independent TDs, because basically it's a way of almost doing a confidence and supply deal. It's like the last government where Fianna Fáil supported it from the outside. That's basically the point that we're getting to now. If the vote goes through but the Greens lose 1 or 2 members and the coalition is once again in a minority, doesn't mean that anyone is sacked immediately, but it means that they're dependent on outside and independence. So you start making policy deals now so that in a vote next week, those independents aren't going to collapse your government because they want to see those policies delivered.
So that's...
And this is a big problem for the government, is that there are these independents who which is quite different to the UK, where the independents have almost no power whatsoever. But in the Irish Parliament, a lot of the times there are you have almost a hung parliament, and it relies on these independents to provide support for the government. And if there are a number of abstentions from the Green Party, which is part of the government, if they do abstain or if they vote against the government, the government will need to rely on these independents, and these independents will extract huge concessions. They extract a pound of flesh for sure from the government. Mr. Peter KJ, thanks so much for that super chat. The rent on the other side of the country is expensive too. Source: I live in Galway. Yes. It's not even a case of rural versus city. Everywhere is expensive.
That's actually a point worth reflecting on in the overall how this is going to work and how the government is going to survive this. Is that this can be quite a positive thing, to probably look for a better word, for a lot of independent TDs who can start to use this as a way of wielding influence then on government. They can be like...
Shanty Rat says the Shinners are opposed to, Sinn Féin are opposed to building residential unit in Dublin. So I've heard a lot about that, but I don't know the full details. What's been happening with Sinn Féin? Because there have been accusations that they have blocked the building of units in Dublin, for example. I don't know if that's, the government wasn't able to do it because of Sinn Féin, because Sinn Féin are not in power, so they don't have the votes necessary to stop it. The government have a majority, so it sounds strange that Sinn Féin would be able to stop this.
Like, well, we'll back you in no confidence motion or in the counter motion regarding the eviction ban if you start doing X, Y, and Z, which I'd like you to do.
Yeah, and that you can argue that that's kind of part of the reason why people elect independent TDs, that maybe the circumstances come up where you're able.
So it's going to be interesting for Ireland next week. So is there going to be a vote of no confidence? If there is, and the government lose it, there will be elections. And Sinn Féin will probably win a massive majority. Sinn Féin will probably win a majority on their own, so they won't actually need to go into power with anyone, because I think the vast majority of voters are very angry with the government at the moment, and this could be their last chance. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thank you for your super chats, greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone for smashing the like button. Before we go, we have our one for the road. I hope you enjoy it. Matt Green once again. If I don't see you on Sunday for the Sunday roast, I'll see you next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, guys. But before we go, enjoy this.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, as assured by my advisors, so help me God. Can I start by saying to the committee, with the greatest of respect, who are you? I haven't heard of any of you, apart from Harriet Chairman, just because she's a woman. I've been on Have I Got News for You, for God's sake. I am taking this hearing very seriously, so much so I've even brushed my hair. The only person who disagrees with me is Dominic Cummings, and he has many reasons to lie. Unlike me, who lies for no reason. Would we really have invited the official photographer along if we thought we were doing anything wrong? Do you think we are that stupid and brazen? Yes, I am the guy who rode around in a lying bus. You say it should have been obvious, but, what does obvious mean? For a lot of people, it's obvious that I'm awful, but people keep voting for me and marrying me, so, riddle me that. People in number 10 were making an effort to socially distance. That's why we drank champagne, You don't have to pour it, you can just shake it up and spray it. It goes at least 2 meters. We followed the guidance to the best of our ability, and our ability was low. No one told me it was wrong. I was the leader, so they took their lead from me, which was their mistake. Number 10 is a uniquely difficult place to socially distance. It's an 18th century townhouse filled with narrow corridors and people who don't give a toss. Nowhere else in the country was as difficult to work as number 10. Imagine having your worst enemy living just next door. I believed that these events were not just reasonably necessary, but essential for work purposes. I don't know about you, but if I don't attend at least one leaving do per week, well, my efficiency rate just goes right down. I was not partying during lockdown. I was thanking staff who happened to be having a party at the time. It's very different. No, I'm not angry. You're angry. Right, time to lead a great rebellion against Rishi. 29 votes is quite a lot. It's more than I get in a by-election these days anyway. Stop calling it a party. I never called it a party. except when I called it a party as shorthand because the press were calling the party a party. Is that clear? I won't use the names of any of the officials involved. Jack, Mary, Eric, Graham and Jenny are just some of the names I won't use. We all remember the guidance that I gave very clearly. Hands, face, space. Brackets, wherever possible. Footnote, if you can be bothered. It's not my fault if you didn't read the full advice. I may have made some remarks about the social distancing. Those remarks were not necessarily meant to be a joke. I have in the past said some things that were not intended to be funny. The evidence of that is not in the bundle. I did see trestle tables. I don't remember what was on the trestle tables, apart from some of the staff later on. Look, you can't expect some sort of electrified force field around people. You know, sometimes people will sort of drift into each other and then they will, you know, possibly touch each other and maybe start kissing each other. And sorry, where was I? We used a lot of mitigations, like alcohol-based hand sanitizer. I think we used the cheap Prosecco for that. We didn't touch each other's pens. That might be a typo. I thought I was working because I was at my desk, and thanking people is very much my job. You know, remember Churchill's great speech, you know, we will thank them on the beaches. I think this is a great committee, and I think this conversation's been very useful. Unless you find me guilty, in which case I reserve the right to call you a kangaroo court on a witch hunt. What would a kangaroo witch look like? Focus, Boris. I think the main thing we've learned today is that I'm really good at leaving do's. Will you all come to mine?
Oh, wonderful. So guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Sunday roast. If not, I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Take care and have a great one. Good night.